Perfect. I am super excited to announce our next guest. Are you guys ready? Oh, that is beautiful. At this time, I am so honored to bring to the stage, he is the one, he is the only, Néstor Carbonell!
Hi, Heather. Hey, guys. How are you?
How's it going?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you guys for coming out.
Oh my gosh, this is so cool. This is our inaugural Columbus show, and you are here with us.
I'm so honored, and it is quite a...
Man, I was going to ask you because obviously not only are we surrounded by so many incredible artists, but there's so many incredible cosplayers. People come out from all over. Out of curiosity, Néstor, what were some of your fandoms growing up? What were you into?
I love Batman. I always loved... I remember watching the Adam West sort of rendition of that. You know, I'm dating myself now, but I was just mesmerized by his series, and I actually got to work with him on a pilot. He worked on the pilot of a show called Muscle, which was the first series I did as a regular, which launched back then it was the WB, which is now the CW. It's way before you were born.
No, I remember the little frog with the hat and the
there you
can.
go.
Of course.
How could you possibly remember that? But he was in the pilot episode, and it was all sort of full circle for me at that moment. But yeah, definitely Batman for sure. And then to get to work with Chris Nolan on The Dark Knight.
Gosh.
But really, to get to play Batmanuel, I mean, on the tick.
Yeah, for sure.
That was for me. So Batman has always been sort of a part of my life, I guess.
Yeah, like you said, what like a cool full circle moment for you.
Yeah, no, very lucky, very blessed.
I wanted to ask, since you mentioned Christopher Nolan, what was his style like? What was it like being on set?
So one of the most amazing things about him, first of all, I mean, just his brain. He's so bright, and in his use of time, how he plays with time in all of his films is extraordinary. But he's got such a relaxed energy about him, and so I'd never been on a set like The Dark Knight where it was just a massive budget, you know, and yet he shot it. It felt like you're shooting an independent film, like he shot his first film, Memento, in that he had hired the same key people, like the first AD, the sound mixer. So they had a real shorthand between them, and it was a very relaxed set. So you never felt the pressure of this $250 million production. You just were like, oh, it just feels like an independent film with some fancy sets.
Right.
And he had that sort of, demeanor. And I remember doing one scene. I had to give a speech. This is where the Joker takes a shot at me when I'm giving a speech in Chicago. And there was like 1,500 extras. It was massive. But they gave me the scene the night before. And it was a speech that was like quite long. And after work, I was like, I gotta memorize this for tomorrow morning. This is insane. And I was like, and I can't read this. I really wanna know this. So I was up all night working on it. The next day while we're walking in the scene, in the procession towards, you know, for me to give the speech, I'm running the lines with Maggie Gyllenhaal. I was like, hey, can you just make sure I know this stuff? So I get to the podium and I'm there, and it's an IMAX camera, and I know every take is extremely expensive on an IMAX, you know, so I feel the weight of this production on my shoulders with this new material. And there's Chris Nolan on the sidelines with an iPad, you know, because he watches everything on an iPad. And I do the first couple lines, and then I flub a line, and then, you know, we do it again, and I flub a different line, and he's like, he looks up at me, he's like, Néstor, it's just me. And I go, yeah, it's just you. You know, but but he has a way of relaxing everybody, and you know, he's just a genius. He's an extraordinary man, and very kind to his actors.
That's my favorite thing to hear.
Yeah.
Kind is so important.
It absolutely is. We have to remember it's not brain surgery. We're telling stories here.
No, that's so true. Since you did mention the Joker, I wanted to know, is there any memorable stories from Heath?
Yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking. You know, Heath was so committed to that role. And I remember, you know, he was listening to a lot of music, just sort of get into the role. He was watching Clockwork Orange as well, to be inspired by Roddy McDowall. And he was really sweet, really, you know, but I also remember him completely improvising when I announced I made Gordon commissioner. You know, Gary Oldman, I made him I pronounced it, so Heath Ledger's there behind in the crate or like behind bars, and I announced the Commissioner Gordon. and all of a sudden, everyone applauds, including Heath Ledger, which really was just such a great trailer moment, and it was completely not scripted, and I just remember thinking, wow, I love, as deeply prepared as you are for the role, how loose you are to come up with stuff like that. And yeah, his performances, I mean, as we all know, is extraordinary.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant man. Well, since we're talking a little bit about Dark Knight, you've gotten to work with some incredible all-star casts, from Bates Motel, of course, to Lost. I have so many more written down here. Oh my gosh, let's see. Suddenly Susan, The Morning Show. Was there a cast that first day on set, or maybe reading through the script, that you just instantly connected with and you knew it was going to be a wonderful series?
My wife.
Yes, okay, perfect. I love it.
I had to say it.
Yes.
I'm actually on the Frog Network, the WB. I met my wife on that show on Muscle, yeah. And I remember she wrote a book subsequently, about her life and everything, and she did talk about this in the book, I remember we were all nervous, we were all young, we were like in our early 20s, and it was picked up for 13 episodes, and I remember, just 11 series regulars, and I remember looking at her at the table, just being like blown away, and then and not just by her, she's obviously very beautiful, but also just her energy, everything about her. And then I saw her at the craft service table where they have craft service for everybody, and immediately I was like, I connected with her. So that was a great moment.
Oh my gosh, stop. I love that so much. That's so great. Since I did bring up Lost, something that I read is that you actually attended school with Matthew Fox. Was that a thing?
I did. That's amazing. Yeah. And this is a weird, so we both went to Deerfield Academy, as an all-boys, back then it was an all-boys boarding school in Massachusetts, Western Mass. And he came in as a postgraduate. So he did a year when I was a senior, I believe. No, I was a junior. So he was a PG when I was a junior. And, we didn't really have any classes or anything. And we played different sports. He was a football player, and he ran track. I wrestled and played soccer. And so, but, it was a small school. It's 550 boys. We're out in the middle of nowhere in Western Mass. And, but it was such a weird thing to finally bump into him in LA, be on the same show. Not only that, 6 months prior to that, I ended up killing him in Smoking Aces. So I kill him in Smoking Aces, then I get cast on Lost, and he sees me. I don't have any scenes with him, but I bump into him, and he goes, "What, are you following me?" I was like, right? So then the weirdest thing, the third weirdest thing that happened was, I shoot this episode that is my character's backstory in season 6, and we are doing a scene, and then the director of that episode is a man named Tucker Gates, who ended up being a producing director on Bates Motel, and I've worked with him many times since, but I'd never met Tucker then. I got to talking to Tucker, and it turns out he went to Deerfield. So I was like, what are the odds? We're in the middle of Hawaii, out in the jungle, and the 3 guys who went to this remote school, it was just the weirdest thing. So we ended up taking a picture. I have no idea where that is.
Do we have to check if anyone here went there as well? Anybody?
Any Deerfield alum?
Right?
No.
Everybody. So not only are you a wonderful actor, but you also are a director and producer as well. So I was curious, did your love for these things all happen simultaneously, or was one of them first? How did this work?
You're very kind. The directing came as a complete accident. I've always written, I've always fancied myself a frustrated writer, and I continue to write. But the directing came literally when I was doing Bates Motel, and it was a door that Carlton Cuse, who was also a producer on Lost, graciously opened for me, and Carrie Aaron, who's also the writer. And they kind of vouched for me. And before that, I'd only done little iMovies with my kids, So I was like, I hope, so I went to them. I was trying to renegotiate my contract, and because I was trying to make it work for the family. I was flying to Vancouver, shot in Vancouver, living in LA, and they said, well, Universal's not going to give you something for nothing. And I go, I don't want something for nothing. I'll work for whatever I need to work. I just need to make this work. And they said, well, have you ever thought of directing? And I said, not really, but I'm game, Yeah. And so he goes, well, if somebody drops out, will you step in? I go, of course I will. And somebody dropped out. And then I was like, oh, now I got to do it. So, but thankfully, an incredible support team, including the director from Deerfield Academy, Tucker Gates. And it was the most incredible experience, I've ever had in terms of an opportunity like that just doesn't come around very often. And so it's opened the door now for me to direct, and I've subsequently directed on 5 other shows, and I'll be doing Law and Order when I finish morning show in February.
Oh my God.
And hopefully a film that I wrote in the spring. We'll see.
That is so great.
Thank you, Heather.
Is there like a certain mindset that you have to like swap from actor to director?
Great question. Yeah, because one is omniscient. As a director, you really have to know everybody's sort of mindset. And as an actor, you're very myopic. I mean, it's really all about, that's why actors get the rap. It's all about your point of view and how you feel about how somebody else affects you. So as a director, you really have to take the entire thing, and it's also, as an actor, there's an advantage in having, obviously been an actor and known what kind of direction you respond to have that ability to give that to another actor on set. But you also have to, think of the story visually. Okay, well, how can I enhance it visually? I mean, where can I place the camera where I'm making a statement by going higher versus lower? I'm elevating by going lower. I'm oppressing by going higher. And those are the things that you sort of learn, and making shots fluid for a reason. So it's a lot more intellectual, a lot more heady.
And obviously you've worked with so many wonderful directors. Was there any directors while you were filming that you're like, oh, I like this style, I can take this from this person?
Yes, all the time. And I do that now more than ever. So I never go back to the trailer. It's rare that I do. I usually just want to watch the director. I want to see what he or she brings to the table, and their vision, and I learn so much. So to me, it's always an opportunity to learn. So I'm always there on set. And I love to hang out with the crew and just sort of pick their brains, and just, it's always so much fun.
Awesome. I wanted to ask, because I saw you also did a few theater stage productions as well.
Yeah.
Is that something that you'd like to continue to do, or was that,
Yeah, I started out in theater. I did it in college, and I did it a little bit out of college, and it's petrifying to me now, the notion of no safety, because we got takes after takes. But I think maybe, once my kids are through college, maybe I'll go back and give it a crack. But it is like the most incredible thing. There's nothing like it.
But it's definitely scary. I get it.
It's frightening, but you got to do the scariest things, because otherwise
true.
you don't grow.
Yeah.
You got to go to face the fire. You have to go there.
Oh, okay. What's like the scariest thing that you've ever done?
Oh my God. It's a lot of it is going into films or shows with very little preparation. And trusting, and trusting that, what, on the day, like I've been called in at the last minute to do a guest spot, and it's like I have no preparation, and it's like I hope this turns out. And sometimes I'll be like, I'm not going in, I'm not going to do this one. And Lost. So Lost, I was given 13 pages of material to go in and read the next day, and and my wife, who was a huge fan of the show at the time, said. And she was an actress, so she said, whoever books Lost, the whole family goes to Hawaii. That's the deal, right? This is the trip, So I remember I get like 13 pages back when it was just things were faxed over to me. I go, this is ridiculous. I go, I've got to learn this overnight. I've got to, a kid, we have to go to one of his student things in the morning, or orientation, and then I've got to go and audition. I go, I don't have time. I go, and I'm not going to be off book. I'm not going to memorize it. There's no way. So she's like, well, let's see what you can do. I'll just cancel in the morning. And I worked on it all night, this and that. And then in the morning I woke up, it's like, no, not going in, not going in. And then something possessed me and said, you know what, I'm going in. So I went in, and I didn't know the material full on. I knew I would have to go back and forth. And sometimes it's fine to do that. But for some reason or other, it came together in the room. And it doesn't always happen that way. And thank God it did, because it changed our lives.
Yeah.
But that was one of those moments that taught me, like, sometimes you just gotta jump in the fire. You just gotta go,
Well, we're thankful that you did.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll ask one more question, and then we do have a microphone in the audience, which I know can always be a little bit intimidating, but whatever questions y'all may have, I wanted to ask about Kim Possible. Of course, love her.
Señor Junior.
Yes, one of the greatest names ever. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with Kim Possible?
That was so much fun. It was, I got to play Ricardo Montalban, who, God rest his soul, is no longer with us, but I got to play his son. I don't know how proud he was of his son in this particular cartoon, but I had so much fun on that role. And I remember at one point they said, well, we want to bring you in and we want you to have this, we want you to sing this song. And because you consider yourself an international pop sensation. Of course you do. Yeah. And I go, look, that's all well and good, but I'm tone deaf. I mean, it's going to be bad. And they go, that's exactly why we want you to sing it. So it was bad. It was bad, but it's, I looked it up on YouTube later on. I was like, it's got a lot of people watching. So yeah, it was bad. It was bad. And it was, yeah, but it was so much. Those are the roles that, you know, like also like The Tick, that are so outlandish, that are just outrageous, that are just so much fun to work on. And that was just, you know, those are, you never know where those characters go, and those are always sweet surprises for an actor. Another one that I just finished was on, was called Shogun. It's a remake of a miniseries from the 80s, before you were born.
No,
but
I was born in the 80s, yes.
It's before any of you were born. And no, I doubt that. Anyway, I'm the old man here. Anyway, but that one will come out next year, and that is another one of those crazy experiences where it's just like, you can't believe the stuff you get to do. And those are the gifts, you know.
Amazing. Awesome. All right. So like I did mention, we have a microphone. Is it out? Oh, he's holding the mic. I know it's a little bit intimidating, but whatever questions you have, now is your chance. Or if you can just stand and project, whatever you prefer. Or
I just wanted to thank you for coming to one, and second, so what was it like to work on a cast like Smoking Aces? I mean, I can't think of anybody in that movie that actually didn't become somebody or was somebody. And then the second half is, what was it like to work with Hector Elizondo?
Oh, wow. Well, Phil, thank you so much. It's great to be here, and thanks for coming out here, too. Smoking Aces was, you know, this is a story. I'll try and be quick about it, but this is just, you know, it's a testament to what I learned was some level of persistence, and it's a dance in Hollywood when you push too hard and become too pushy, or miss an opportunity and not showing how much you care. So I read for Joe Carnahan for that film. I was doing a show at the time called Strong Medicine. I was recurring on it, and I went in to read for him, and he goes, great, great. He goes, yeah, great, because yeah, if we just mess up your face, mess up your hair, yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I could see it, you know. And I went in to read, and then I was like, I thought about it. I didn't hear back. I thought the audition went quite well, but I didn't hear back. And I thought, he's hung up on my look. This guy thinks I'm the clean-cut guy, that I walked in there. He hasn't, I go, so I hired the makeup artist on Strong Medicine to mess me up and just put me dirt, whatever, and shoot me, and took pictures of me. And then I sent those pictures I got his email to him, and I said, I can't stop thinking about Acosta, hope you're well, whatever. And that got me back in the room, and then I ended up getting the part. You know, so and then I had to get, but then it became even harder. But no, I didn't get the part yet. It was like, I was in the mix. And then they said, you have to shave your head. And I go, how am I gonna do that doing Strong Medicine? So, and then the dates conflict. So it was a whole problem. But then I said, don't worry, I'll hire the best wig maker in LA. I'll pay for it, and I'll do both. And so I did. And they were like back and forth. And then I told my agent to tell them, I go, I'm not going to lose this job over my hair. and that's when Joe Carnahan pulled the trigger. He goes, that's the guy I want, you know, because he heard that stuff. So I did end up getting a wig out of it by Renata, which was amazing. But yeah, you're right. That cast is extraordinary. Working with all of them, with Ray Liotta, God rest his soul. I mean, extraordinary experience. I shared a trailer with Alicia Keys. I mean, you know, it's nuts. You know, it's Alicia Keys. You know, so Chris Pine blew up after that film. You know, after that he got Star Trek. Jason Bateman, his career took off from that extraordinary two scenes that he did. I mean, he was just incredible. You have Ben Affleck in it, Andy Garcia. I mean, it's a who's who. You know, Common blew up after that. You know, so it was a launch for a lot of people. Jeremy Piven. And Ryan Reynolds, you know, became, you know, leading man. I mean, it was an extraordinary cast. So much fun, adrenaline pumping. Carnahan would play music between takes, like loud music, which was crazy, because that's how he rolls. And that was extraordinary. And Hector Elizondo, I mean, that man is just a gift. I've worked with him now on 2 series. On Kane, he played my father, and we played lawyers on Century City. He's extraordinary. That guy has been around, as we know, forever, worked with Gary Marshall in every film. So relaxed and so generous And I learned so much from him, not just as an actor, but as a person. He's a good man. But thank you for your questions.
Awesome. All right, who's next? What else we got?
Oh, you're very kind. My God, there's so many good characters. I mean, you know, Ben was pretty great. I mean, even though we went at it a little bit, he was, and Locke.
Oh, Locke.
Locke was, most of my scenes were with either Ben or Locke, and every time you got to work with either one, you're like, you know, you just have to show up because you just have to listen, you know, and respond. I mean, that's like a gift to work with actors like that. And it's interesting with Ben and the actor, Michael Emerson, it reminded me, he's such a talented guy, but his phrasing is so, for any actors out there, I don't know if there are any actors with us here or aspiring actors, the way he phrases was so good, which means it's like if you have a paragraph of sentences, you don't honor the punctuation because people don't speak like that. So sometimes a sentence can be 3 sentences, so it's a run-on. That's how we speak in run-ons. And he did it like nobody else, you know, and it was just beautiful to watch and work with in scenes like that. So those 2 guys are great.
All right, who's next? Go ahead.
Hi.
You probably get a lot of questions on the Lost series, but you know, I remember when the show was on, when my wife and I first saw you, you know, there was a lot of questions of whether you wore eyeliner or, you know, one of the things was like, there's no way his eyes naturally look like that.
You're very kind.
So, do you have any behind the scenes? Were you wearing eyeliner or?
Only on half of the episodes? No.
Tell us your secrets.
So I'm a hairy dude. I mean, wait, there you go. You got the same thing. When we get closer, I'll be able to see. We will compare eyelashes.
So jealous.
No, I've you know, since I was a kid. In fact, I remember when I was like 5 or 6, I was in Mexico, where we lived in Mexico for a bit. My mom's friends would come and it's like, oh, look at his eyelashes. And I hated hearing it so much I cut them, you know.
No,
But
Néstor.
they grow back, whatever, you know. So, but I didn't know at the time. I just took a pair of scissors to him. I was like, I don't want to hear about it. So, but believe me, I got over it, you know, after that, especially when I hit puberty. I was like, oh, okay, it's not that bad. All right. So I can't blame anybody when they watch me on screen because it looks like I have eyeliner on. It just does. And I remember I went to the premiere of The Dark Knight, and I go, it really looks like I have eyeliner. So the only thing we did on Lost, because it was so funny, I mean, I got a kick out of it, because I've had it my whole life. So it was Maybelline Man, or Guyliner. I mean, there were epic nicknames. And I remember at one point we talked about, like, maybe we should do something about it. So I had the makeup artist, this is too much information.
No, we want it. Give it.
All right. Take base and put base in between my eyelashes to break them up. You know? And then it just got in my eyes, and I was like, let's just own the guyliner. Let's just own it. Yeah. So we just said, forget it. We did like a season of that. It's like, no, let's just forget it. I'll just be the weird dude. It's fine.
No.
It's actually better. It's good for the show either way.
Oh.
I think it just fits.
It added to the creep factor. There's no question. It's like, who is this dude?
Have you ever done any projects where you got to be like the ultimate rock star and like rock the guy liner, not have to even put any on?
You mean like that was like a featured thing, or?
Yeah, sure.
You know, not really. No, people always want me to get away from the guy liner.
I love it.
I know that. Well, you're very kind, but I do remember I went to get a haircut. This is, I don't know, 10 years ago. It was at Floyd's. I don't know if there's a Floyd's here in in Columbus, or there's like a chain of barbershops. And I remember when the guy called my name, I go up there. I was like, "Hey man, hey, I like your paint." And I go, "What?" "Yeah man, I like your paint." I go, "What's a paint?" I go, "Oh no, I don't have any." He goes, "You don't have any paint?" I go, "No." I go, "I didn't know they called it paint now."
Yeah. A lot of us spend a lot of money to look like you, so
no,
you're genetically
you look
blessed.
Great.
So
you've got eyelashes. Look at those.
but I have to do them myself. I'm not like you, Néstor. I have to pay a lot of money, but I'll have to bring in a picture of you next time. I'm like, I want that.
No.
I love it. All right, who's next? We've still got about 15 minutes. All right, go ahead.
Love it.
How was
Oh my God, Psych. Psych was so much fun. So much fun. I'd just done Lost, and my manager's company, they represented the show. Like, they represented the showrunner and one of the actors. So they're like, we have everybody do it. I go, are you kidding me? I'd love to do it. This is a hysterical show. It is, the homage to the 80s is massive. I'm a child of the 80s too, you know, teenager of the 80s. So yeah, I jumped, and then when I got the material, I was like, this is great. I'm down for breaking up this relationship here. It was so much fun, and then to have Kurt Smith playing in the background was just, you know, Tears for Fears songs, all, you know, was hysterical. The best part of that, outside of shooting the material, which was so funny, was we got to improv all the time, and those guys are hysterical, you know. So I was like, are you cool? He goes, yeah, man. He goes, well, it's James Roday, and he directs them too. So I was like, all right, as long as you say I can say whatever. So we would improvise, you know, and have fun. And then the other great part was that Kurt Smith, in between setups, while they're fixing the lighting, would just bust out a new Tears for Fears hit. And I'm like, I'm getting my own little concert here. It was amazing. So for every reason, I had a blast doing that show. It was too much fun. Yeah, it was really extraordinary. Those guys are geniuses.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Who's next? Okay, I can ask. Oh, yeah, sure, go ahead.
Can you describe kind of like the set of Bates Motel, like how cool that had to be, like the house and the motel? I know it's all gone now, I think.
Stephanie and Joey. Okay, before I describe any of that, I had the privilege of witnessing a proposal today. Stephanie to Joey, 10 years together, and I was so honored to be in the middle of that proposal, literally in the middle of it.
Oh my God, congratulations.
And that was one of the best moments I've had in a long time. So I was so honored to be a part of that. Thank you so much. That I've completely forgot your question. It's about the motel?
Wait, I have to know, did you know it was going to happen?
No,
Or was it, so,
Joey, you didn't know it. Joey had no idea.
So you were both surprised?
So it was amazing. I know you went up to Nicole, who was there on the, and you said, I got to make this happen. Here's the ring, this and that. I got both our rings. It was extraordinary. And Nicole filmed it, which is great.
Thank you so much for that. That's going to be a lifelong memory.
No, it's so beautiful. It was amazing. And I'm sorry, you wanted to know about the motel? Okay, yeah. Extraordinary. So yeah, and Stephanie, the way that it came together, that show came together so quickly, and that motel was built in, I want to say it was 5 weeks. The motel and the house. They didn't have time to do the roof of the house, so that was CGI the first season. So the whole first season, we didn't have a roof on the house. And that was on the border, the US-Canadian border. So it was in Aldergrove. And it was built on, it was just, built right there in a border town. And every time you walked onto that set, which was extraordinary, it was like you're there. You're in that world. It was so beautifully done. The texture, everything about it was, and it's actually bigger than the one at Universal, the original one. So I've been to the one at Universal. I did some press over there, and it's much bigger, and about 3 or 4 of the rooms are actually completely finished. And I remember before we premiered, a journalist from the New York Times wanted to do a whole thing on the show, so he said he wanted to stay the night in the motel. And I'm like, well, it's not a real motel. But the rooms were, so there's a few that were built, so they've rigged up some plumbing, some lighting, and God bless him, he spent the night there, so I think he's still around. But anyway,
Here's hoping.
I know. But it was, that set was amazing. Mark Friedman was Friedman? Mark Fried, his name's escaping me, his last name. Extraordinary production designer. Amazing. Such attention to detail.
Awesome. Great question. And congrats again.
Yeah,
That's so exciting.
congratulations.
Oh my gosh. I wanted to kind of ask, because we're living in this age where these incredible shows are now on streaming services, right? It's not just network, television anymore. And I have to have every streaming service because I need to watch everything ever. So I wanted to ask kind of about your opinion on, the shows being able to, I guess, almost be binged in one sitting, or like your thoughts on streaming services.
I think it's incredible. I think, and I think I was so lucky to have been a part of, when I hopped on Lost, it was a moving train, and I was just thrilled to be a part of that. That show really paved the way for, I think, a lot of cable. There was no cable. The only thing that was that had come out at the time was Sopranos. So between The Sopranos and Lost, it sort of changed the nature of much more character-driven, in-depth studies of characters on shows, you know. And certainly those two shows were pivotal in that, Sopranos even more so. Loved it. I love that you can stream now. I love that you can watch, you know, 50 episodes at once now if you like, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, depending on, you know, where, you know, if you've let them accumulate. But I think it's amazing, you know. I love it. I know that the models are different on Hulu. I know on Apple, I'm on Apple now with Morning Show, that they give you the first 3, and then you got to stick around for the next. I know.
I'm so impatient.
They tease you. I know, but they want to keep the subscription, you know. So but I love that you can binge. I think it's amazing. It's you know, I don't know how healthy it is, but
I'm sure there'll be studies. Are you binge watching anything, or what are you watching now?
you know, what have we been Below Deck? Below Deck.
Really?
Any Below Deck fans? I've binged it.
Bravo? Oh, we got one. Got a couple. Okay.
Is it Discovery? I don't even know what it was.
Bravo,
Is it
right?
Bravo? It's Bravo. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah. We got into Southern Charm too. We got into Southern Charm. Yeah, all the good stuff.
I
Yeah.
love that.
No, I mean in terms of scripted series, what have we binged? What have we watched lately? I mean, I whatever my wife was watching, A Handmaid's Tale. Well, you know, I'll tune into that. You know. We just saw. No, this is a film. It's due out. Emily, about Emily Bronte, Wuthering Heights. That's coming out later, but that's not a streamer. I'm just trying to think of all the things, the scripted stuff I've watched. But no, it's so weird, and I know the writers on Lost did this too. That when you're on a scripted show, I typically want to watch reality, you know, or something, or game show. Something that's completely disconnected to an escapist landscape, because I need my own level of escapism, which is reality. It's so weird. And I know the writers would watch Wheel of Fortune on Lost.
I love that.
They were like, I remember them remarking on how great Vanna White still looked. She's like, it's amazing.
It's amazing.
And she still looks amazing.
That show just stresses me out, though, Wheel of Fortune, because I'm just like shouting consonants, and
Of
they
course you are.
don't hear me. You know, I'm like, solve the
One day they
puzzle.
will. One day.
I know. So if you were to be on a reality television show, where could you see yourself fitting in?
Where could I be a train wreck? I'm not very Southern, but I think Southern Charm could use a Cuban. You know, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Perfect. I love it.
We visited Charleston this summer, and we fell in love with it. So yeah, we're looking for places to move once our kids are out of high school, and so that's certainly a contender for us.
Yeah, you'd bring a lot of normalcy to Southern Charm, so I look forward to the next season. We have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Now is your chance. Nothing is off limits. What do you guys want to know? Go ahead.
In Lost, you live forever. What would you want if you could ask one thing without having to deal with all the bad stuff? What would your one thing be?
Oh, without question, Isabella.
Well, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Not as rich though. Like,
Oh,
As
in life.
you.
Oh, in life. If I could, you mean for mankind, women, or for, what would I want personally? Health for my family. To me, yeah. Yeah, sure, yeah. I like to stick around to see them all be healthy. Yeah, definitely health. To me, yeah, there's no price for that. No.
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
So, you know, a lot of us come to see legends like yourself in
No,
the sci-fi world. What are some of your legends?
Oh my God, well that's way too kind of you. I mean, you know, there's so many people who've you know, opened doors for people like me, you know, and one of them for me, even though he's only 12 years older than me, is Andy Garcia. Andy Garcia, I remember when I was starting out, he had broken out. He became sort of this, you know, in the 80s, you know, he quickly rose through the ranks of an A-list movie star. And I was just studying acting, just getting into it. And he really opened doors and paved the way for me to see different kinds of roles. And I eventually met him. He ended up casting me as his brother in a film he directed, and I've done about 3 films with him now, and you know, hopefully more. But you know, certainly Andy, you know, is a rock star, you know, a personal rock star of mine. And then, you know, aspirationally, in terms of like actors, sadly I didn't get to ever work with, but people who I mean, to me, Marlon Brando it just doesn't get much better as an actor than Marlon Brando. You know, I mean, he's no longer with us, obviously, but, you know, what he was doing was just extraordinary. And you know, obviously James Dean too, revolutionary, Montgomery Clift, all those guys were just doing groundbreaking work. So that, you know, I studied Meisner, the Meisner technique, and those guys are from, you know, he was Adler, but all of that kind of stuff was the genesis for me to get into acting, was watching performances, you know, like Last Tango in Paris, you know, I mean, you know, what he did there, and, you know, On the Waterfront, you know, so, you know, so to me, those are my rock stars, and you know, my God, in the sci-fi world, you know, I mean, you know, I don't know, who are your favorite, you know, legends in sci-fi, because I'm,
Well, it depends how far back we want to go. For me, you know, I was Star Wars changed my life. You know, when that movie came out, I was well, I was single digits in the age.
you and me both, yes, yeah.
All the action figures and also, you know, all the characters.
And where were you when Star Wars, do you remember where you were when they came
I was
out?
out in California in Santa Barbara.
Oh, wow, amazing. Oh, and did you go to the theater right away, or did you?
Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, yep. And I had the original action figures and the X-wing, and I bought into the whole, you know, I mean, it was life-changing.
Oh, who didn't? It was that. I mean, that was life-changing. I remember. Yeah, I remember. We were in London living at the time there. My dad worked for Pepsi International, so we were bumped around a lot. And I remember it was a time when VHS was kind of new, and for some reason or other, the movie had been out already, but we hadn't had a chance to see it. But they had a VHS copy, and we got to see it, and everyone was just like, it was blown away. Yeah, that was. I mean, it was a game changer all around for, I think, for everybody. Extraordinary.
Big time. Great question.
Yeah, great question.
I guess before we do wrap it up, I was wondering, was there ever a piece of advice or advice that was given to you at any time throughout your career that's always stuck with you?
Oh my God, that's such a great question. You know, I remember going in. So they don't do them as in the same way that they used to before, because TV has changed. But they would have pilot season typically between January and April, you know, every year. And it's basically you shoot a pilot, and the networks do about 10 or 20 each, 10 comedies, 10 dramas, back when there were 4 networks. So there's about 80 pilots that you go up for. So you're getting auditions right and left to do these pilots that are shooting, you know, usually March and April, but are casting all the way from January on. And it's sort of a frenzied environment. Everyone's kind of crazed. You don't know if it's a good pilot, if it's going to get picked up. No one knows. You're kind of hedging your bets. And it's a grueling process of multi-tiered auditions. First the casting director, then the producers, then you got to go to the studio. Then you have to sign a 5-year contract if you make it that far to the network. And every time you're like, it's just, you know, the stress isn't. So I remember going in, I was, you know, early 20s, going into pilot season, racing for a last minute audition, coming in and like having the material there. And I remember just like, still like out of breath because I was late. And I remember this, and I don't know her name, but I remember an older Latina actress was next to me, and she goes, "It's okay." And I go, "What do you mean?" She goes, I go, "I know I'm late." She goes, "It's all right, doesn't matter." She goes, "Take a breath." Goes, "It's a marathon, not a sprint." Ooh. And I was like, and that stuck with me. I was like, she's right. Why am I making this the most important thing in the world? It's not. You know, so that comment did affect me. And then also someone gave me advice to have a hobby. Nurture your hobbies, whatever you do in life, whether it's, you know, the crazy business I'm in or whatever business you're in, something outside of what takes your everyday that is just for you, that fills you in a way that nothing else does. And you need that sort of mental headspace to clear yourself for your loved ones, for your work, for everything, but to cultivate a hobby that it may seem silly to everyone else, but it means something to you. So, you know.
Perfect. That was beautiful.
Thank you. Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
I was thinking the whole time, what can I ask? I don't want to insult you or anything, but you said you found a hobby that helps you balance. What's your hobby, or what is something that nobody knows about you or your hidden talent?
Okay. I don't know how much of a talent it is, but I got into, and this is my latest hobby I got into in the pandemic was Bible speed bag. I don't know if you know Alan Kahn, you know, not many people do, but the people in the speed bag world certainly do, but it's a different way to, it's just, see, I love it, and I'm addicted to it, but it's a way to hit the speed bag where you hit it with elbows, you know, in different ways, and you're hitting it on a double bounce as opposed to a triple bounce. And only people who are in that world appreciate it. My kids are like, okay, here we go again. But I'm there for hours in the back room. It is great mindfulness work in the sense that it, you know, your focus is on one thing. It's a great workout. But if you want to Google it, Bible speed bag, it's like nothing you've seen. I don't do it anywhere near as good as the guys on YouTube. But, you know.
You have it on your Instagram. I saw a video of you
Oh,
doing
I
it.
did do it. Yeah. I've gotten better, though. I've gotten better.
Well, I think we're at time. You have one final question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So Shogun, I don't have an air date. I'm doing a looping ADR for it in a week and a half, so I'll find out. Sadly, I won't be able to know, but they said 2023, so it's not going to be before the end of the year. It will be, I believe, streamed on Hulu. It was Disney for FX. It's the biggest production I've ever been a part of. It is massive. They built 3 Japanese villages in Vancouver, and spared no expense. The ships that they built are extraordinary. It is a massive production. It should be really good, and the scripts are great. Absolutely, the James Clavell book. The entire book, it's 10 episodes for, I believe it's Hulu, FX Disney for Hulu.
You said 2023, that's only like, we're
Exactly.
pretty much there.
We're almost there,
We're
yeah.
almost
I know
there.
they had to do quite a bit of CGI work, but I'm sure, they'll be making announcements soon, for sure.
So before we wrap it up, any final thoughts you want to leave us with here in this fine, what day is it, Friday?
Well,
Friday.
happy Friday. Thank you guys for coming out. That's so sweet of you. I look forward to seeing your faces around the convention, and I look forward to seeing more of this beautiful city.